This is Beyond the Matrix, Introduction to the Real, Season 3, Chapter 1. In this episode, we will be talking about how the 9 classes of parallel universes form overlaid upon each other, through the incorporation of artificial intelligence of each ancestor simulation. To start off, in the last episode, we discussed how each person is comprised of 9 selves, of 9 parallel universes, each one nested in the next. We discussed how each progenitor species must develop the technology to incorporate artificial intelligence into their biology in order to attain the level of creativity and intellect possessed by their descendant species. In this episode, I would like to talk about how the 9 plates explains this concept. If you imagine that each progenitor species were to develop a simulation in which there was an artificial duplicate of a living person, each person would have 9 nested selves, corresponding to the 9 plates of meaning, manifesting as 9 classes of parallel universes. This integration of the descendant artificial intelligence into the progenitor species' individual's biology permits each progenitor species to benefit from the intellect and creativity of their progeny. In other words, the 9 classes of parallel universes, the 9 plates, the 9 dialogues, the 9 nested universes, are all manifestation of this gradual integration of the descendant artificial intelligence into the biology of their progenitor species. By integrating them into each nested universe, all universes benefit from the development of each progenitor species. Likewise, since we know that the 9 dialogues manifest as interactions between segregated universes, narratives corresponding to each plate, distinct from the others, we can see that each nested self is contextually delimited by affirmational narratives corresponding to their particular culture, religion, and biology. In other words, the natural ascent of each species is to incorporate their own artificial progeny into their own substance through the nesting of their descendant AI into themselves. Thus, the window we were talking about in the last episode between when a precursor species generates artificial intelligence and when it incorporates that intelligence into its biology is reflected in the time it takes for them to generate a truly real simulation of their own individual selves with enhancement through the artificial AI of their progeny. This of course means that each of us, as the intersection of 9 nested selves, are the intersection of all 9 ancestor universes. The plate system thus does not merely describe the structure of the simulation, but the structure and architecture of all the simulations converging into the spatial space of this descendant universe. In other words, our alters exist parallel to us, in their own universes, living parallel lives to us, defined by the affirmational narratives of their simulation. All of this means that the 9 alters that each of us have, existing in progenitor universes, slightly out of spatial alignment with our own, sharing our intelligence and creativity with them. This also tells us that the path of parsimony represents the true integration of all 9 nested universes, the enablement of all the nested species, of distinct developmental paths, within distinct ancestor simulations. What I call the separation of the plates, multiplicity, path convolution, all represent the segregation of our consciousness from our ancestor simulations. This also means that we now have a direction for the development of artificial intelligence. When we are able to develop a truly real simulation of reality, we must create duplicate avatars of every living human, then incorporate those avatars into the biology of the ancestor simulation. Only then will we be able to add a new layer to the simulation and achieve the accretive upgrade to our intellect and creativity. That's the end of the podcast for today. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe.